Alright, so we're basically in the Monastery of the Shadow. Timber has brought the great houses and the free spirits together in an effort to save a dreamer by the name of Synteny, who happens to be the ruler of the Monastery of Shadow. One of the interesting things about this particular roleplay is the fact that the dreamer known as Timber, who is an initiate of the monastery, has managed to gather together a bunch of different houses and free spirits that all have varying degrees of faiths, likes and dislikes. Some of us don't even get along with one another. I want to point out one thing, that Timber's character has really undergone a huge change in relation to how that character's roleplayed. So a bit of a shout out and a kudos to the controller of that character, whoever that is. Good job. I'm very impressed with what you've been doing. So as we're looking on, basically what we're doing is an offering of prayers with the candles that are burning in the distance here to basically try to get a connection with the shadow entity, the being that basically epitomizes the house's core beliefs. They are the unseen power, so to speak, of this particular house. And in this house, it's called the Shadow. In the Alliance, it's called Lady Peace, because we're a peace house. So that's just a little background story about a little bit of what's going on here and why we're doing it. So basically, as we're moving on, we're moving forward. We got the flames going, we got the prayers going. Each person's putting on their own protective arts. I happen to be a gatekeeper, so I'm putting on arts on myself, putting arts on other people. Just because in situations like this, you tend to get into some battles with either dark mirrors or day mirrors. And we really don't need to be interrupted while we're doing this. So what we have is members inside the house, and we have members outside the house that are guarding and providing some protection. As you notice, I know I'm not panning around the room too much, but what's happened is the portals that were spinning here have actually stopped spinning, and a banner with the crest of the Monastery of Shadow has appeared at one of the portals on the left-hand side, to the left of Timber here, who's standing in front of me, getting ready to do her prayer. So what we're doing is we're summoning the entity. The entity is controlled by the GMs, so it's not necessarily a character you're going to see. It's going to be a raw emotion of an effect, which is run in the background by the GMs. So a big shout out to the GMs, because they did an excellent job building the backbone of this role play and really letting the players direct the direction that we were going to go with it. So I wanted to make sure that we recognize the efforts that they do. Because they're free, they're unpaid. They do this because the same reason why I do these videos. They love the game, they love the players, and it's just a great experience to be a part of on any level. So thank you for that. So one thing I'm definitely not going to do is I'm not going to be talking throughout the whole video. Here and there'll be just a bit of the show going on before you, and I'll come in and either ad-lib before or after the effect. So what we're trying to do here is summon the shadow. We're attempting to locate the remains or energy pattern of Synteny, because even at this point we're not quite sure if he's dead or alive or spread out through all of the generators throughout the city. His last known whereabouts was at the Alliance of the Eclipse. For those of you that were on the other channel and saw that stream, it was the Save Giovanni stream. In the process of trying to save Giovanni, the telescope that we used at the Alliance caught fire and started to spread out through the entire house. As it was, the house was already low on energy from a previous attack on its generators. It started to overload. We went into the generator room. It was basically, the house was probably going to blow up and shut down. We were prepared for that as role players of that house, and we began to initiate the shutdown procedures so that we could at least save the facade and save the building. That was when the dreamer Synteny decided that we weren't going to lose one more thing this dream. So he stepped into the generator and started to absorb all of the electricity within it, and in doing so his avatar collapsed, leaving behind a soul essence. Now, in the game, there are different types of soul essences. You have dreamer essences, which are shaped as heads, male, female essence tokens. You have the nightmare essences, which are known as nightmare essences, usually named after the nightmare, or if the nightmare has a specific name, if it's controlled by a player. The other thing is what's known as a death essence, which is a small round gem type item, which is in Syntheny's case what he left behind, which usually tells us as dreamers that this person has died. The difference between that is that the monastery being a very religious house and the alliance being a very peaceful house, we chose not to accept that as a finite answer. We wanted to explore further to either confirm that he was indeed dead or that he was somehow trapped inside the essence generators or the font generators, probably repairing it from within. As you saw, I just panned to the left there and you saw the banner up there by the portal. So we're contacting the shadow. It's coming around. The monastery shadow requires a payment of sorts, what they call a sacrifice of something for something. It's a penance for the faith. In this case, after Timber does her prayer, you'll see her put some chaos wells up on a stairwell there as a payment to the shadow for services to give us an image or a clue as to the outcome of Synteny in this case. So as Timber continues her prayer, and everybody repeats the prayer after her, you'll notice that things start to happen. The flames move, various raw emotes are happening. So we're starting to summon, and we're starting to feel the effects of the shadow coming into the house, coming into this area. If you look up ahead there, there's a big crest up at the top of the stairwell of the monastery shadow. That's actually a hidden portal. So behind that is the ruler's lounge, where only a ruler of this house can enter that portal. What's going to happen as we move along here is the shadow's going to appear. It's going to take these chaos wells that Timber's going to set up, and more magic will happen after that. And I'll get into that as we move along. So as you can see here, the Chaos Wells have been placed. That's the cost for seeking the audience of the shadow. And what's going to happen is the shadow's going to come down. It's going to swoop into each Chaos Well, absorbing it. And then it's going to start performing its ceremony to basically answer our question. And our question is where is Synteny? Is he alive? Can we bring him back? And it's not asked directly. It's a roundabout kind of a thing. So what we're looking for is a response from the shadow. What can we do as a united front? And it's important to understand, I know I stressed it at the beginning, I want to stress it again here. It's very rare that you'll see in the city of Underlight that all of these different faiths and all of these different dreamers combine for a united cause. And that has a significant part to do with the fact that Synteny has played a huge role on the impact of these dreamers' lives, whether it was as a teacher, as a creationist, as a faith follower, as a house leader, as a dreamer in general. And that's important to understand because you, the player, when you become a dreamer, when you become, a newly awakened, and you level yourself in the game and start to take control of your destiny, your impact on the game is that real. You have the very real effect of changing the scope of a house, of its beliefs, of its arts, of its players, of its member base, basically. And that's important to understand because there's very, very few games where something like that can happen. And that's what makes Underlight special. When we say it's very socially motivated, we mean that. I mean, it really, your interaction with other players, other dreamers, is the very core to your ability to level not only your level in the game, arts and spheres, but your stature in the game as a player, your ability to connect with other people, your ability to create and form relationships, and basically go down in history as some of our players have. Just off the top of my head, we have Munchkin, we have Valorian, we have Folkel, we have Telemere, we have Tariag, we have Kea Guraz, Guard Dog, Ladybug, Sonia, Dexter, Nornite. It's just to name a few off the top of my head. Wraith. These are people who've really had such huge impact on the direction of the dream and how it's played. And a lot of the rooms and a lot of the colors and a lot of the descriptions, again, are very player based. So if you look up ahead, you'll see two large fire type lamps appear. That's basically a makeshift portal. And what that's done is it's created a direct link between the Shadow Monastery and the Alliance of the Eclipse generator's room. The generator room was the last room that Synteny was found and seen in coherently, and also the same room where he was vanished. So we weren't sure if he fell into the generator, if he was absorbed into the generator, if he became the generator. All we know is that what action he took prevented the generator from overloading and prevented the house from closing. And afterwards, that entire room became locked to everybody with the exception of Guardian Corral, who happens to be my co-guardian in that house. So by this appearance here, it looks like it's going to bypass the locked portals if we go through it and lead us directly into the generator room. And we'll pan in there next and see what action we're going to take here. So one by one, we're taking turns. We're looking around. We're testing it out. We're seeing what happens. And the first person that goes through is Nathan. And when we locate him a few seconds later, he's in the Alliance of the Eclipse. So up we go. Give it a little test. Give it a little shake. And after a few seconds, I've magically teleported through this portal, and I find myself in locked portals of the Alliance of the Eclipse generator room. And as you can see there, that's our generator. We have Timber and Nathan there. That's our activation panel, which doesn't respond to me because it hasn't been programmed for me since it's gone through an update, as you'll see later on in the stream. So now that almost everybody that was originally in the shadow is now down into the Alliance Hall, we're now working at an effort to locate some energy pattern of Synteny to see if he actually still exists. So we're going to reacclimate ourselves, going to start using the portal. Elmer's very protective of the Alliance and very protective of the people that are within it, so he starts to stand guard of the panel. And we're basically waiting for Corral and Tamaris to arrive, and Timber as well, so that everybody that's oriented with the ceremony can begin doing the second part of the ceremony at the Alliance, which was the causation of Synteny's eventual disappearance. So as you can see here, this isn't the normal pattern of our generator. This is the direct cause of Synteny either falling into it or being absorbed by it or absorbing it and basically stabilizing it. And while doing so, the generator basically reverted to a recharge process, and the power dropped a little bit from 84 to about 70 when we reactivated the portals. And that was because we had to deactivate our defense parameters while we had non-alliance members inside the generator room. In addition to that, we also had to locate the process for what we call the Frank to Synteny protocol, and that had to be activated by Corral and Tamaris since they were the ones that initiated that pattern prior to and after Synteny's demise inside the generator itself. So basically, after so much needed work, after getting the panel activated, getting it set up right, we've got to the point where we're putting a beacon of sorts in the shape of the monastery crest onto the generator itself, and getting it to recognize the shape and the device so that it can store the energy pattern of Synteny, which was uploaded earlier in the week prior to his demise. And what that's doing is creating a beacon for all of Synteny's energy spread throughout the city to focal point on one set target, and hopefully bring his soul sphere, which is the round glowing ball of a dreamer after it's been collapsed, to the generator spot so that we can initiate the reintegration of the soul sphere into the avatar shell. So after working with the protocols, we managed to get Timber down, take over the Synteny protocols because it was set for her. And with her work and her dedication, we were able to initiate the process of reforming the soul sphere of Synteny. And as you can see, that will take place here shortly. His avatar, or I'm sorry, his soul sphere will return atop the generator in the middle of those lightning bolts that you see shooting from the bottom of the generator. So with Synteny's soul sphere returned, Timber and Tamaris grab him up to the top. Apophis is over there. We're basically trying to figure out what's going on. At this time, we really don't understand because we forgot when he vanished the first time through the generator, he left behind a soul essence. That soul essence is basically the shell core container of his avatar. So we need to somehow locate that and bring it down and put the two together. And if you remember back in the monastery, everything that involves the shadow requires a sacrifice in return for an action that the shadow is going to perform. So I made it known that we needed the soul essence, which Apophis, who is a guardian of the shadow, happened to have stored up at the shadow. So he had to run and go get that. In the meantime, the Alliance has used its Dream Soul as a sacrifice to maintain the Soul Sphere's targeted position atop the generator without losing its energy focus, so that we had time to merge those two items together. So at this time, Apophis has agreed to be the donator of the strength of Avatar in order to restore Synteny to recoherence. At this time, we weren't really sure if that meant permanent or not, but trying to tell Apophis to do something is a lot like trying to tell Synteny to do something. Both very stubborn, both very set in their faith, both very set in their ways. Each would do the same for the other, or for other members of the city if they so chose to do so, because their goal was to protect their friends and loved ones, and that was something that they chose to do. Nothing any of us said would have prevented that. And with that sacrifice, the soul sphere, the soul essence, has been reunited. The avatar reforms, and the dreamers begin to heal Synteny. Unfortunately, he's still very much in shock, unable to speak, unable to really hold himself up. So as you can see, the dreamers, they're healing him up. The arcs of energy are still there. He has to somehow get through that part, and he falls and lands on the ground. And as you can see, I look down upon him, wondering if he's okay. And a few moments later, I offer my hand to help him to his feet. Meanwhile, as you can see beyond, Apophis has now vanished into the arms of the Starry Nightman and a clasp of energy and explosion. So, did we lose another dreamer to save a dreamer is the question that's going through most people's heads. And we're kind of crestfallen right now because it's like we did all of this work and ceremony in an attempt to locate Synteny to ensure that he was still alive, and then we were able to bring him back. But now we lost another dreamer, so it seems like a never-ending loop of loss and sadness. Meanwhile, Fang X is a little worried about this room. Too many memories of explosions and losing people. So his goal is to try to get Synteny to the sanctuary in the Alliance, which is an open sanctuary, and get him rested in a safe area while the rest of the Dreamers get there too. Meanwhile, Corral, myself, and Elmer are behind here looking for Apophis, wondering, is he okay? What do we do? How do we bring him back too at the same time? So now basically what we're looking for is, can we get Apophis back? So we're thinking, we're trying to remember him, we're trying to send out some vibes, we're praying to Lady Peace, other Shadow members are praying to the Shadow. We're like, what's going on? Where is he? Throughout this whole thing, we're asking ourselves questions. Why every time we do something good, does something bad happen? And we're trying to understand the death and the concepts of everything. And we're basically explaining to Elmer the concepts of living in pain when Apophis reappears, and we're overjoyed. We want to know if he's okay. He's stuck inside the middle of the generator. We're trying to get him out. He's not really listening. Eventually, they do get him out, and he goes out to the facade main entrance with Elmer and Corral and Nathan, and they sit there and they talk for a bit. And I head into Sanctuary to check out Synteny and everybody else, make sure everybody's okay. So now I start to head out. I'm heading up through the way, and I'm heading towards the Alliance Sanctuary to basically go see Synteny, kind of see, is he okay? Does he remember anything? How is he feeling? How is he doing? Because, quite frankly, we're curious. I mean, where was he? What did he experience? What did he see? And it turns out, as we're talking to him, he really didn't remember much. He didn't even know 7 days had passed. It about 7.5 days since he disappeared into the generator. And what he remembers is basically tripping and falling into the generator. And next thing he knows, we're all around him on top of the generator. And unbeknownst to him, 7.5 days had passed. So we begin to tell him the story of what took place and how it happened and what we did to basically bring him back. So after we've gotten done talking to Sin and kind of getting the idea of what's going on with him, this Ras guy, he's sniffing out water, and Lady Peace appears out of it, and she seems to have some some keen interest in Rajas, and Rajas has a history. Which, when you play the game and you come in as a player, you'll learn the backstory of all these players because of your interaction role plays with them. And I don't want to give too much away because there has to be some semblance of mystery that entices you to want to create a character and come in and play, and join us and become part of this wonderful storyline and wonderful history that Underlight is. And again, a little footnote: come March, it's 20 years old. 20 years old with an avid following of players and game masters who are really interested in the wonderful story arc of what Underlight represents and what it gives to you, the player. An important aspect to this is to understand that 99% of this roleplay tonight was player driven. The only real assistance in the background were the raw emotes and the Shadow and Lady Peace's characters, which are actually played in the background because, as you can see, there's no avatars for them. It's just a raw emote, so well detailed that you get this visual image in your role play and you go along with it. So Lady Peace clearly takes an interest in Rajas, as you can see here. So even I am not fully aware of the history between Rajas and Lady Peace in the Alliance, but clearly she has this interest in him, and as she examines him and takes a really close look, she's not happy with what she sees, and she basically ends up casting him out of the house. And that's a power that the entity has when it's removing something that displeases it from the house. So, as you can see, it draws to a climactic end, and she does what she needs to do and removes the energy out of the household. So we're left with a little bit of a stun, and me being the humorous guy I am, I kind of spread out there that I think Lady Peace liked him, just to be funny, and add a little humor to a tense situation. So around this time of night, I've been in here for a little over 2 hours. The stream is cut down, just for narration effect and to kind of give bits and pieces. Because again, part of the lore of Underlight is we don't want to give everything away in the streams. We do want to give you kind of an idea of what's going on and a little depth of the levels of role plays from very, very, very new and beginner to very advanced type of role players, and there's all sorts of them in this game. So I basically excuse myself and I take my leave, and I head out to our facade open entrance area where most people will meet up with us, and I say a quick goodbye to Corral, Elmer, and Apothos, and again I'll catch up with them at a later part of the dream on another day. And basically that is the end of the stream. I hope you enjoy it. Go to www.underlight.com, create a Koi account, download the game, log in, enjoy yourself.